Welcome to this episode of Be Your Greatest Asset, the wellbeing podcast for mums in business who wish to share their incredible wisdom and knowledge and talents and gifts with the rest of the world and inspire other mums in business to really prioritize your own well-being. And today I'm really pleased to welcome Josephine Snowling from Rebirth of the Mother. Tonight we're going to be talking all about motherhood being so much more than just being mum. So Josephine, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I'm very excited to be here and talking about this topic. It is, a topic that I think both of us love to talk about. So I'm, as you say, Josephine Snowling, and I have created Rebirth of the Mother predominantly from my own experiences of entering into motherhood. So I have two children, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. I have been married to my husband for 9 years now, together 13 years. I have left my corporate job to become a stay-at-home mum after the birth of my first child, and have started my journey towards creating a business empire, which is an aspiration of mine personally. So I have been through a lot of different experiences in motherhood. My marriage has gone through some very rocky patches, from being kind of on the edge of divorce, which we have reclaimed our marriage, me and my husband, and brought it back to something that was even better than what it was before. I have remained a stay-at-home mum, started creating a business. Like, there's been so much experience, and I want to give that back to other mothers and to share my experiences and my learnings, because I really do believe that you can have it all as a mother. You don't have to sacrifice anything. And I have been in this mindset myself. I still drop into it and have to knock myself out of it. But I think you can get so caught up in this kind of motherhood victimhood sort of scenario where you believe that you can't have all of these things because you're a mum, or you can't have all of these things and be the mum that you want to be. It's like you have to sacrifice one thing for the other. And I just think that it's not the case at all. And I really want to, work with people like yourself and empower mothers to feel that they don't have to do that they really can have the motherhood that they want.
That is so inspiring, and thank you so much for bringing that through, because you're so right. I agree. Like, the number of mums I work with who just don't do the things that they want to do in life because they're being mum, or
Yeah.
doing mum, all the busyness, and just not giving themselves that time. And I love the way that you bring it all together, the marriage and the being a mum and work and everything. So what does being a mum actually mean to you? What is motherhood to you?
Well, I think this is a really interesting one, and this is something that I really want to sort of teach other mothers about, is that as soon as we have a child, as soon as we become mothers, there is so much focus on parenting. And obviously, quite rightly so, whether you've adopted a child or whether you've given birth to a child, you have a physical child in front of you that now is your responsibility. And it's also a new experience for you as well, especially when you become a first-time mum. You've never mothered another human being before. So there's lots of new things to learn and to go through. But we become so focused on just that parenting aspect. And I think what happens is we as mothers forget about all these other things in our life, all these other areas that enrich our lives. And of course, our children are a major part of that enrichment. But we forget about things like our marriage, our love life. We forget about our career, or even if we don't want to have a career, like just something that's just for us, that's not being mum, something that's, a project or just a hobby that we dive into. And so for me, motherhood encompasses so much more than just being a parent, than just being mum. And I think if you are conscious about the way you want to parent and you want to bring your best self as a mother, then you have to look at all these other areas of your life, because all these areas impact how you are as a mum. Like if things are rough and rocky in your marriage, then that's going to be having a direct impact on how you are with your children and how you're showing up, you know. And so I think motherhood is this, it's a transition into a completely new way of being in life.
Yeah.
And I think for so many women, it's just not seen as that, you know. Like I'm sure you've probably experienced it yourself being a mum as well, that as soon as you have a child, like a lot of your values change, your priorities change, you know, your life completely changes. And so what you desired beforehand, it's not that you can't have it, but I think it's impacted when you
Yeah.
become a mum.
Or what you want changes, and you becoming okay with the fact that it's changed, and or even trying to reevaluate, review what your values are now. Like for me personally, I completely lost sense of who I was. I was so
Mm.
determined to be that perfect mum, that amazing mum. My eldest is 11 now, and I was a brilliant mum. I still am a brilliant mum,
Mhm.
but to my own detriment at first. And I remember, I'll tell you a story. I remember when my son was 5 months old, I went on my little sister's hen party in Cardiff. So it was a 3 hour journey either way, 3.5 hour journey, something like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go out clubbing. I'm going to have some drinks. I'm like going to be me, whatever. The brutal reality was that I had a brilliant time until about midnight, when my boobs were so big
Yeah.
and so painful. I felt like I was a cow in a public toilet in the club, thinking,
Yeah.
what the hell am I doing? Like, I thought I wanted this, and actually, I really wish I was at home with my baby
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
my husband. And yeah, and that's just one little story. Like my value, I realized in that moment that I changed, and that actually I didn't, have want the same things anymore. So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Have you had any experiences like that?
I think, yeah,
Feeling
it's
yourself
interesting
in
you
a
talk about like going out and doing the kind of clubbing thing, because I think as well that that's the other thing about motherhood as well, is that we have to be so present in the moment, because it changes all the time. Because I remember as well, when my two were really little, I didn't want to be going out, like I wanted to be close to them. But I'm now feeling in my kind of phase of motherhood right now. I mean, my youngest is, what is she, 2.5 now? She's starting to get a bit older and a bit more able to be without mum for longer. And so I'm sort of wanting to get some of those elements back, because I feel now that I could really embrace them and enjoy them without that, you know, that really, without losing that kind of close feeling that I had like in those very early days. So it's, you know, your desires change like constantly, I think, as your children are changing as well. And it's, like you say, it's about recognizing them and honoring them for, you know, for what they are in the moment, and being okay with the fact that they can change.
Yeah, definitely. And also like managing energy levels and things, because your energy changes a lot as well. But also the matrescence, there's the phase of becoming a mother, like
Mm-hmm.
adolescence. There is actually a neurological change that happens, isn't there, where
Yeah.
your brain pathways change when you become a mum, and
Yeah.
you sort of become more protective. And I remember crying at all of the charity adverts, the children in
Yeah.
children's
Yeah.
names and all of the
Yeah.
RSPCA adverts and everything. But your mind suddenly becomes much more emotional. It is like a
Yeah.
neurological change that you go through, isn't it? um
It
and
is. And I think it's, yeah, it's completely, it's just not spoken about. It's just this thing, I think, that's kind of, you just become a mum and then you just get on with it,
you
you
just
know.
deal with
And
it.
it's,
And
yeah, and it's
yeah,
such a major change, not in a, and it doesn't have to be a scary thing. I think that's the thing, you can really embrace this. I mean, you know, for a lot of other, you know, friends that I've spoken to who are mothers as well, becoming a mother was like, that was the moment that they really got real about who they wanted to be as a person. Like it kind of really kick-started that journey back to themselves, because I think it forces you to, and you've got a child in front of you, you know, they bring up a lot of things, you know, there's a lot of things that you get triggered by. It's all very like raw, isn't it? But
yeah,
I think it can be this really beautiful transition into like really starting to find yourself.
yeah. And what would you say to somebody who is struggling to find themselves? because I think there's an expectation in society that we just fall into motherhood, that it's all so natural and that you just do it, you know. But I do know that there's a lot of women out there who do struggle or have struggled with becoming a mother, or even later on as the children grow and change, their needs change, you know. Even I work with women who the children are sort of going into the teenage years and things, so there's that element of change as well. What would you say to women who are going through that and really struggling to find who they are in the moment and find that flow?
I would say, and this is a really hard thing to convince mothers of, it's to prioritize yourself, not in this selfish way. It's not, and this is the thing, people think, oh, it's selfish, you know, but, you know, trust me, from my own experience, when you put yourself first, everybody else around you benefits. It might feel selfish to begin with because it's just something that we're not used to. But I would say start to get really good at tapping into how you feel. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. You know, our emotions are our guidance system. When we don't feel happy, when we don't feel alive and well and energetic, that's your indicator that something isn't quite right. So I would follow the things that make me happy and continue to add more of that into your life. And you know, you can instantly see the benefit that it has in your relationship, in, you know, in your career, with your children. As soon as you start to put your well-being first, you know, it's like it's what they say, isn't it, on the plane, about always put your own oxygen mask on first before someone else's. And it's complete, like, we need to start doing that more in motherhood, and we need to start embodying that to show our children that our own, you know, mental well-being and health is the priority first. Because when we are operating from that overflow, that is when we just effortlessly become the mothers we want to be. We don't even have to think about it. You know, like, I used to read so many like parenting books, and I still do, but I knew when I was in that moment where I was kind of analyzing what I had to do with my kids and like, what was that thing that I should have said? Whereas when I'm just in that place where like I'm lit up from what I've been doing and I'm happy and there's that overflow, it just comes to me. It's like, oh, you know, I remember that thing in that book, I'll say that. Rather, you know, like, and you can tell the difference between when you're just naturally doing it and when you're forcing it. And I think the only reason we force it is because we are not operating from this place of joy.
Of joy, and also of concern of what others are thinking of us, I think, sometimes as
Yeah.
well. And yeah, I absolutely 100% agree with what you just said about prioritizing your well-being. I am all over putting yourself
Yeah.
first, me first parenting, which is exactly why I'm doing these podcasts. Yeah, I second the fact that when I put myself first, everything in the house is more harmonious. Like my relationship with my husband, even the way he deals with the boys, how the boys' moods. Like, I know that if I've taken the time for me and I go into the kitchen in the morning and I'm in a good mood, you know, the day is set up
Yeah.
well. Whereas when I'm in a bad, you know, got out of bed on the wrong side, um, things don't always go so well, and then it just spirals.
Yeah.
So it's learning to, like you say, check in with how you're feeling. I
Yeah.
think sometimes that is a practice in itself. So you have to actually
Yeah.
make that choice and commitment, don't you? And
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think as well, like, just touching on what you were saying about sort of thinking about what others think about us, I think this is the thing where, like, there's so much information nowadays, which is an amazing thing. Like, we have so much more information than, you know, our parents' generation did, but that can be so overwhelming, and it can be hard to decide, well, which route do I do? Like, you know, like, there's so many different ways you can parent, there's so many different ways you can have a career, like, you know, have a marriage, like, there's so many different things. And I think it's about really tapping into what works for you and your family, because it's going to look different for everybody else. You know, you might find someone on Instagram who's got this magic lifestyle and it looks amazing, and it might work for them, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. So read things, watch things, and take inspiration, but don't necessarily feel like you have to create these carbon copies of them. You know, test them out and then just ask yourself, does this feel good to me? Does this feel right? Does it work with my family? If it doesn't, then just move on, you know, find something, you know, that works for you. And I think that's what it means to prioritize yourself as well. You know, it's not about, you know, I think people can get this really sort of selfish idea in their head, but really it's just a prioritization more of like your mental space than anything, isn't it? Like you say, you know, when you get up in the morning, it's like, okay, I'm going to prioritize, you know, I'm going to do some gratitude. I'm going to focus on the things that I enjoy. You know, I'm going to make sure I go about my day and, you know, find one thing that's going to make me happy. You know, like that's what it means to prioritize yourself.
Definitely, yeah. Being able to maintain your emotional state regardless of what's going on around you. I think, because let's face it, you know, life happens and it doesn't always go to plan, and we can't change that. Like we have no control over it. But taking it back to mindfulness is that we can control how we respond to it. We can respond in a way that, you know, so we can have life going like that, but in those really bad times we can still try and
Yeah.
just kind of cruise through, process the emotions, of course, but you know, deal with them in whatever way, take time out or whatever. But then we come back and we, you know, we've processed our emotions and we've accepted things. And yeah, no, it's yeah, it's powerful when we can actually maintain that emotional well-being, that sort of
Yeah.
even keel. Definitely.
And it takes practice, you know,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
not something. I think that's the other thing as well, like sort of let yourself off the hook, because what can be so difficult is reading about all these things and you're like, oh, that really resonates, that really makes sense, I agree with that. And then it's like you have this gap between, it's like you can be knowledge smart, but then there's a whole nother level to like embodying something.
Yeah.
You know, you can read something, understand it and agree with it, but that doesn't necessarily move you on. Like that's the first step, and the next step is really practicing it and embodying it and making it a part of who you are, you know, your identity. And that takes time, it takes practice, you know, it's not something that just happens overnight.
It's like taking course after course after course, isn't it? But actually never doing anything with the qualification.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
reading book after book after book. And yeah, you have to put it into practice. You have to actually make that choice to do and be that
Yes.
mum. And yeah, and I think you hit a good point that, you know, it is different for everybody. It looks different. Motherhood looks different for everybody. And
Yeah.
yeah, really finding your own way. Even though I've had years and years in holistic therapies and um, practice what you preach kind of thing, which, you know, let's face it, it didn't happen for a long time, years and years, until I suddenly went, actually, yeah, I really do need to practice what I preach. Um, and even last year, I was still struggling to connect with myself. Like in the business world, as a mum in business,
Yeah.
there's so much information as well. So, you know,
Yeah.
you've got it as a mother, you've got it as a business owner. And I just happened to work with a coach who was amazing, who really helped me connect in with my intuition, because I think so many people, so many mums are really disconnected from their, you
Yeah.
know, the inner compass and their intuition.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, sorry, what you,
No, go on. You were
sorry,
on.
I mean, I was just going to sort of jump on that to say that I think as well that, you know, we are in this really kind of weird era that a lot of the industries and the companies that we have already set up that we're used to, that a lot of us have maybe worked in the past before becoming mothers, are very much ingrained in masculine energy. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's, you know, we need both the masculine and the feminine. But when we want to sort of go into business and merge that with being a mother and all of, you know, create that different lifestyle with our business, we need to tap into that feminine energy a lot more. And there's not masses of examples of a very feminine led business. And this is not, you know, to do with men and women. This is, you know, the energies of masculine and feminine sort of thing, you know. And it looks very different to operate a business from the feminine energy as opposed to the masculine energy. And there can be this tendency to want to go back to that, especially if we've had jobs, you know, before we became mothers and that sort of thing. And, you know, it's like a safety net almost. But when we're not tapping into the energy that we really want to be operating from the majority of the time, you know, that's when it can sort of lead to burnout and, you know, unfulfillment in that area.
Yeah, yeah. And what do you do that you really enjoy doing that lights you up to help you feel energized? Or what, you know, you don't have to share if you don't want to, or you know, what tips have you got? We've mentioned about prioritizing yourselves, but what kind of tips, advice, wisdom have you got? Or you can share a specific personal example. It's up to
Yeah,
you.
I mean, I suppose like specific to my business, like I don't see my business as work. Like my business is
Same.
like it's my hobby, it's my passion. And I think for me that is so important because as a mother, I do not want to be going into something where I'm draining myself and, you know, feeling unfulfilled. You know, I want to come away from having been at work, so to speak, and be even more lit up and, you know, even more energetic with my kids because I've been doing something that I really enjoy doing. And it's hard to follow that sometimes. You know, I mean, I've been looking at strategies and you get into this idea of like you've got to follow this path because this is what's going to make you successful. And luckily I've found some examples of amazing women who have completely gone against that and created massive businesses, you know, multi-million dollar businesses pretty much by themselves and doing it in this very different way that honors their motherhood like journey and that aspect of it. And it kind of means throwing the rule book out and going, I'm just going to do what I enjoy. And, you know, the success and the abundance is going to follow that. Um, so it's hard to sometimes, but I think it really is like as simple as just tapping into what do I find fun? What do I enjoy doing? Like one of my when I first started my business journey and I knew I wanted to create a business, I did this really amazing meditation, this visualization, and it was by someone called Jeffrey Allen. He was an energy like worker, and he has like courses on Mind Valley. And the meditation set you up as though you were going to go down and see two different roads. You're going to visualize two different roads, and one of them was going to be the path that you didn't want to take in life, and the second was going to be the one that you did. So you kind of visualize going down them. And what was amazing was he then threw this like complete spanner in the works, like during the meditation. So you were kind of already in that state. And then he opened up a third path and he was like, now this is the real path that you should take. And it was amazing because the second path, which was the one I thought I should be taking, a lot of it was I was visualizing images of what other people thought I was good at, or like what other people, you know, what I thought I should be doing. Whereas the third path, I didn't see a lot down it, but when I went down there, something said to me, speech. I just had this word come out really clearly. And when I thought about it, and I mean, my husband will testify to this, I could speak all day. I enjoy talking. I enjoy that form of communication and sharing what it is that wants to kind of come through me that way. And so for me, that was when I started a YouTube channel because I was like, okay, well, speech, you know. But yeah, so it really is like what do you enjoy doing, you know? And anytime I feel like I'm getting to a point where I'm not enjoying something or it's just feeling stressful, I really am getting into that practice of questioning and saying, well, do I actually have to do this? Or if I have to do it, is there a way I can do it differently that still means I can still find joy, I can still find excitement in it, you know, rather than kind of forcing myself down a road that I don't really want to be taking.
Yeah, I think forcing, that is like a brilliant word to use, because I feel like this masculine energy that you talk about is very much the action focused strategy, the doing, the busy kind of, you know, everything's scheduled out energy, isn't it? And which we live in, you know, it has to be done by this time, the deadlines and everything. And we do feel like, you know, we're taught in society that we need to keep pushing to the detriment of our health, and then, you know, the detriment of our children then, because we're not energized and we're living exhausted and we're not rested and we're snappy and short tempered and whatever. So yeah, when we can stop this force energy and actually try and get more into the flow, and this is really where the magic is. This is where we can have it all as mothers, you know,
Yeah.
wives, partners, business owners. The other thing I would like to pick up there is that you said the second path being what you thought you should you should be
Yeah.
doing. And again, that just highlights the power of people around us, and like what we learn as we grow up, and that
Yeah.
we're constantly taking on this information from other people, and it's not necessarily what we really believe to be true, yet we feel like we should be.
Yeah. And it's often like what we perceive to be the easiest path, I think.
Yeah,
And in some ways it is easy, but it's not the path that's going to bring the most joy and the most success, I don't think. Like the
yeah,
path that's going to do that is the one that challenges you in the right way. Like it challenges you because it kind of forces, well, don't use the word force, but it puts you in a place where you have to decide, am I going to be the person who I really am? Am I going to really be raw and vulnerable and step into who I am as a person, really, and not this kind of this mask that we've probably put up for quite a long time? Like, so it's hard to push through that, but I think if we can, and we can try and stay true to that, like that's when, you know, that's when the abundance, and that's when the joy, and
yeah,
you know, it all just comes.
yeah. So much joy on the other side of the comfort zone, isn't there, when you're
Yeah.
out of the comfort zone? And I think sometimes, well, most times actually, when there's resistance, that's usually where the real work is, where the true you lies, and you've just got to figure out what that person is, who that person is, what it is that your body, your soul, your heart is trying to tell you, and try and connect back in with that side of you, rather than always thinking what's in your head. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's all very,
Yeah.
very interesting stuff. So you've created your own method, haven't you? Your Motherhood Temple. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that, and then
Yeah.
how people can, you know, sort of work with you or find out more about you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it kind of happened by accident, really. But it was just through my own experience that I realized. So the Motherhood Temple is, it's kind of almost like a hierarchy in motherhood. So right at the top of the temple is the self, like I kind of was talking about earlier, that yourself always has to come first. You know, that is your number one priority, is looking after your own, you know, mental and physical well-being. But then at the bottom of the temple, so the three pillars, as I call it, are the artist, the lover, and the parent. And I've kind of put these into archetypes because it hopefully allows more sort of room for people in different situations. But what I found in my own journey was, when I was getting really stressed out and burnt out and frustrated, a lot of the time it was because it was coming from places that really weren't a priority to me. You know, it's coming from like stupid family issues, or, do you know what I mean? Things that were like almost outside of like this home space. And when I really looked at what was stressing me out, what I was spending a lot of my time on, that, you know, I was wasting a lot of energy in certain areas, I was like, these things and these people aren't necessarily a priority for me, or, you know, they're not my number one priority. And so I got really clear on what is it in my life that is, you know, what areas are, if these aren't working, you know, if nothing else is working, these have got to be like working, kind of thing. And for me, it was my parenting, my relationship with my children, my marriage. And so I've called it the artist, the archetype, because it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a career or own a business, but it's something for you. It's something that lets out that artistry,
Something
that,
creative.
Yes, yeah. And of course you can still be creative in your marriage and, you know, in your parenting, but it's a different kind of creativity that comes out. And so for me, obviously that's my business, but it can, like I said in the beginning, it can be just like a hobby that you absolutely really love and enjoy, and that allows, you know, that to come out. And so for me, if I have all of those three pillars working and myself kind of at the top, then I've got everything else going on, like everything else, like, you know, friends, family, you know, things in your neighborhood, in your community, like all those other kind of things just sort of naturally slot in, and they're all good. But like that's my home space, you know, is my and it relates to being in your home, doesn't it? You know, your marriage, it's the person you see pretty much every day, your children are the same, and that, you know, you're probably dipping in and out of your business or a career or something like that every day as well. So what I talk about in the Motherhood Temple is all about getting crystal clear on what you actually want for those areas of your life, because a lot of people, I don't think if you actually ask them and you said, okay, what do you want your marriage to be like? You know, what do you want your relationship to be like? Could they really come back at you and say, I want to feel like this, and I want to do this, and I want to experience this?
I think you're right there. I think people are would much more easily say what they don't want, which is
Yes.
great. I always say
Yeah.
there's always an opposite to that.
Yes.
However, it can be very, very hard to actually say what you want, or
Yeah.
be brave enough to claim it, to
Yeah.
actually say it openly. You might feel like you want it, but you might feel like people would take the mickey, or, you know,
Yes.
like be negative about it. Um, and if
Yeah.
people are, it's usually through their own fears. But yes, actually be brave and bold and say, I want this.
Yeah.
I mean, I
But
find
like
that
you say, I mean, there's nothing wrong in knowing what you don't want, because, like you say, you
yeah,
can flip that, and you know, once you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, kind of thing. It's a
yeah.
good place to start. But once you know what you really want, then when you have all of these kind of decisions that come up in your day to day, it becomes easier to start going, well, does this align with what I want for this? Does this, you know, send me in the path that's, you know, going to get me to where I want to? You know, it becomes easier to start making decisions and saying no to things and yes to things, because you've got that kind of clear, you know, slight like mission statement for each area. And of course, this changes as you change and develop. So it's good to sort of keep updating that and keep tapping back in with yourself. But I find that just having it written down can be a really helpful process to go through, and to just really think about what you want for all of these different areas, because then you know what you want your motherhood to look like. You know what you're then working towards. And I think even if you feel far from that point, at least if you know where you want to go, that's better than kind of just scrounging around in the dark, you know, like, where am I going? What am I doing? I don't know what, you know, like, it's a better feeling to have, to at least know where you want to be headed.
And do you feel as well like the rest of the things are going on outside of this temple, this triangle?
Yeah.
You feel like your energy is better protected as a result of honing
Yes.
in on these three areas?
Definitely. I mean, it's not to say that you don't prioritize your friends or your family and things like that, but it's just, I found that like when you need to go into like survival mode, those three things were my things that I had to, you know, if I was having a moment where things were really stressful at home, or I was really going through something, that was my thing I could come back to. You know, this temple was like the sanctuary. It was like, right, okay, stay in, make sure you're in alignment with the parenting you want to do, make sure your marriage is, operating kind of thing, make sure you're doing something, you're having a creative outlet. Then once you've got that going, it's like, okay, right, I can go back in the world and I can be me. And you know, but it's like your kind of sanctuary, your inner temple of, you know, are these things operating in the way that I want them to, you know? And then you can go out and then it becomes effortless again, you know. And I've used this a lot. You know, there's been times where, you know, friends have said, you know, can we go on a play date, or can we go out and do something? And if I feel like, you know, I wouldn't want to go out, for example, with my friends if my marriage was, you know, really rough that week and we kind of just needed to spend time and reconnect. Like that would be my priority over that, you know. And so it just helps you then to start going, okay, well, I could do that, but you know, what is going to benefit me more? And again, it's all going back to that, this self. you know, what is my priority for myself here?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, your values, staying really, really true to your values. I mean, this is foundational, isn't it? Foundational for life. This is you
Yeah,
setting boundaries for how you wish to live your life. So I think it's
yeah.
very empowering, very, very inspiring method that you've got there. So thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that
I
with
love the
us.
name. It just came out of nowhere, and I was
It
just
was
like,
meant to
oh, it's
be.
a temple. Like, you know, it was.
You can visualize it as well, I'm sure, and
Yes,
like as a temple, and that helps. I think the visuals always
yes,
help as well. So, and
definitely.
how can our listeners find out more about you and about where they can find you? Now you've got
Yeah.
a free gift for members.
Yes, yes. So if you want more resources, definitely head over to my YouTube channel at Rebirth of the Mother, because I've got a podcast that I host on there as well, which is Diaries of a Mompreneur. So that's all my kind of journey around growing this business from 0 to 7+ figures whilst remaining a stay-at-home mum. But there's also lots of things about all the 3 pillars on there and motherhood. I'm also on Instagram at Rebirth of the Mother as well. So there's lots of things on there, and you can if you sign up to my email list, then you can get the free guide that I've put together, which is Reclaim Your Motherhood. And that takes you through the Motherhood Temple. It explains what it is, how you can start creating your own. It gives you journal prompts so that you can start really deep diving into what it is that you want from these different areas of your life, so you can start building your own inner temple.
Perfect. Yeah, I thought I like the word perfect, but it sounds wonderful. Sounds really great, and like everyone should go and grab their copy, definitely.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
protect your inner world for sure.
Yes,
So your inner sanctuary, I love that, your inner sanctuary.
yes.
So that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Do you have any last words of wisdom for our, you've
I
shared
would
so
just
much wisdom already.
oh, thank you. I would just say that if you're sat in a place where you don't feel like it's achievable, just know that it is a mindset shift away. That's all it is. It's just one change in perception of how you view something, how you view a certain area of your life. And once you have that shift, that's it. It will just, it will change your course, and the biggest thing to start with is just believing that you can have it. Know you are worthy of it as well. Every single person on this planet is worthy of abundance and joy and everything amazing. So why shouldn't you have it as well?
Exactly. You were born to succeed, born to
Yeah.
succeed. And Josephine and I are here to cheer you on big time.
Yes.
Yes. All we want is to see women succeed. So
Yeah.
amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much for your time and joining us, and for all of your words of wisdom this evening.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.